questions, you can raise your hand in chat. You can also raise a question within the chat function. You can type a question in, or you can raise your hand and wave wildly. And if I can capture it, if you can catch my attention, I'll come to you and ask you to make a contribution or ask a question. For a couple of items on the agenda, because it's the formal AGM meeting, we will need a proposer and someone to second the proposal to enable us to then vote on that issue. So we'll be coming to you to ask you to either propose the agenda item or to second that item. So thank you for that. If you could keep that in mind as we're working through. And also just to finally finalise on that, so if you need any support during the call, please do raise it in chat, and one of us will be monitoring the chat function, and we'll be able to get back to you to help you through any issues that you have working through the meeting. So that takes us to agenda item 2, and over to Wendy to ask if you have any apologies. I have to confirm proxy voting.
Yep. So we have 31 apologies who have also handed in their proxy vote, and we have another 13 apologies on top of that. So there's 44 apologies in total. And what we'll do is we'll list the members' names as an appendix to the minute when we do it.
Okay, so thank you for that. So the next item on the agenda are the minutes from the previous meeting, which were held on the 22nd of September 2022 and were issued in the pack to all members. And it's to ask if there are any questions or comments on the accuracy of those minutes. I can't see any hands up in relation to those minutes, so we can confirm that they're a true and accurate record for the 2022 AGM, and I'll sign those minutes after the meeting. So that takes us on to agenda item 4, which is my annual report on the account. So I just wanted to take a few minutes just to reflect a little bit on the work of the board, the achievements we've managed during what's been quite a difficult year, and then just a little bit of looking forward. So the first thing I think on my mind is simply just to remind everyone that Hanover is here for a charitable function. We are a charitable body. Everything that we do is aimed at our charitable objects, which is around providing safe and secure housing and affordable housing for older people. That's our purpose. Everything that we generate by way of surplus within the accounts that Donna Henderson is going to talk about later, all of that is specifically for the purpose of reinvesting in our homes. And it's just a little reminder that the board are volunteers. It's a charity. We're not making profit from any of this. And indeed, every single thing that we do is aimed at the benefit of our tenants and providing the best service that we possibly can through our workforce and staffing and the processes and judgments that we're making throughout the year in Hanover. It would be a bit remiss not to just reflect that we're still in some ways emerging from the COVID pandemic. It seems a long way away, but actually it had a huge effect on our tenants, it had a huge effect on our staff and on our services, on our ability to meet our charitable objects, indeed deliver really great service to our people and to our customers. And it's simply to reflect a little bit that we're still working our way through those challenges. And part of the real effort and energy from the senior management team this year has been around trying to enable us to catch up, really, catch up in reactive repairs, catch up in all the things that we found really difficult to do during the year and running making our houses safe and secure, and also making sure our people are safe and happy and supported, and making sure that our tenants similarly feel as though they are safe and supported within our houses. So it's to recognise that challenge. We also know there are huge seismic shifts going on within our wider economy, some caused by the war in Ukraine, so the significant impact on inflation. So many of us in our private lives out with Hanover have been dealing with high energy costs, but that inflation effect has affected everything we do in Hanover. It's affected the cost of our people and how we can support our people and our staff to cope in quite difficult inflationary environment, how we're then able to commission work at an affordable rate that we can then use to deliver and maintain our houses and our housing stock, react to the repair challenges that we all face, make our voids issue, manage that effectively, manage our telecare services really effectively on all the things that we do within Hanover. And also our tenants are facing huge challenges. Our energy bills have gone up significantly for some of our tenants. And at a time when at that stage of life, it's often very difficult for our tenants to afford that. So our tenants are facing real financial challenges at the same time as we're trying to deliver all of the services that we are doing. And all of that context and background, we've made great leaps and bounds in Hanover in modernising or trying to modernise Hanover as an organisation. We've spent a significant amount of time and energy in the year modernising our pay and reward structures for our people, trying to make them fairer and fit for purpose for the future, sustainable. We have won an award this year for passive house development in Drimmen. We're really proud of that. It shows a direction of travel and what the future of housing is likely to look like. And one of the things we have to do at Hanover is not just service the tenants of today, but we have to look ahead to the tenants of tomorrow and what they're going to need and require. So another very strong effort and energy is going into developing a digital strategy for the Hanover team. So how do we support our tenants to deliver digital service, and how do we digitize and support our people and our organisation to be as effective and efficient as possible? So we've been working really hard across a whole range of service lines, trying to make progress across them all. And I would say, I think, the management team are obviously in the room, but I think we're really proud of the progress that we've made over that year. If you stop and look back at what we've managed to achieve in really difficult circumstances, we're starting to rebuild. Tenant satisfaction rates are going up from a low base during COVID. We're starting to turn that around. Our telecare service is starting to turn around and show better results, better outcomes from really challenging time. Our staff morale seems to be holding up and high, and our people are telling us that they're happy to work in Hanover, and we're starting to turn around all of those issues around how you manage housing stock effectively. And we've made some great new appointments across our senior team, and a new asset director, for example. So we're making progress across a whole range of areas. None of that means that we don't recognise the huge challenges that still remain ahead of us. One, to maintain that pace of change and transformation, to target and prioritise that effort in the right way, to make sure that the things we're doing really does continue to make a difference for tenants. And all of that work is the work that's ongoing. So it's a pretty long-winded, I said 3 things, probably talked for far too long, and all of those areas, but it's to give all of us just a little bit of stop and look thinking around all the work that we do for all of us and the difference that we're hoping to make. So I'm going to stop there, and I think that then takes us into the next item on the agenda, which is around the annual accounts, and it's over to our Director of Finance.
Thanks, Gary. So in terms of our statutory accounts from this year, I'm just going to pick out some of the high points. So income, we had a turnover this year of 46 million, which is an increase of 2.2%, 2.2 million on the previous year, which equates to 5.02% increase. And that increase has come about from our rental increases, our service charge increases. In terms of our new developments, Gary mentioned Drimmen, our passive house development that came on stream last year, as did Village Gardens up in Elgin. We also had increases in income in relation to care at home and housing support of about 650k just short of. And we've also had some increases in factoring and telecare income as well. Our costs have also increased, as you would expect, and they've increased by 2.5 million to 42.1 million, which is about 6.41. So they've increased at a higher rate than our income has for the previous year. We've spent an additional £1 million on planned cyclical maintenance when you compare it with the previous year, and we've had additional costs in relation to service charge. Gary had mentioned our particularly challenging times our customers were having. We have had significant increases in electricity costs of over 520,000. And to help support that, what we as an organisation have done and the board approved is that we've spent 131,000 supporting our tenants in any way that we can through the fuel crisis. We've also had an increase in costs in relation to housing support and care, which more or less mirrors the increase in the income that we had. From a fixed asset perspective, our fixed assets have stayed broadly the same. They're slightly down, and what that means is that we've charged more depreciation and we've had a couple of disposals to a greater extent than we have adding in those new developments in the year. We've had a slight decrease in our debtors, the money that's due to us. And that, again, that's due to an increase in our bad debt provision. So we've increased the provision for debts that may become bad or doubtful. And again, that's on the back of the current economic crisis. Our creditors have increased by 3 million, and that's due to a high number of accruals that we put through at the year end, mainly around our asset management contracts that hadn't quite completed. And our long-term creditors have reduced. We've paid off around about £1 million worth of loans, and our service equalisations balances reduced. And again, that was money that was used to help support our tenants in the current economic crisis. Our cash balances have increased in the year. And we still have £20 million of undrawn funding there should we require it. And lastly, what has also happened in the year is the funding position in relation to our pension scheme has declined, and there's a projected deficit of about just short of 1.5 million, and that's reflective of the current economic situation in regard to the SHAPS pension scheme. So that's all I have for you.
Okay, well, thank you, Donna, and I think we were going to invite the auditor then.
Yes, so Julie Henderson's here from AAB, and she'll talk to you from an auditor's perspective.
Great, thanks, Donna. Just to say, I was the audit senior manager on the external audit of the association. This was AAB's third year as auditors, and the process went well with good collaboration with Donna and the other finance team within Hanover. We have issued an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements, having concluded satisfactorily on the risks identified. It's risk areas identified, the main ones being in relation to the pension valuation and the management override of controls. An unqualified audit opinion means that we consider the financial statements to be free from material misstatement, concur that the association is a going concern, and that the financial statements are prepared in line with the Scottish Housing Regulators' requirements. No significant control issues were identified, and I would like to thank Donna and her team for their help during the audit process. Happy to take if there's anybody's got any questions.
Julie, thank you for that. Adele, you had your hand up, but I don't know if that was if you had a question. Yeah, it's an accident. Yep.
Sorry.
So in relation to Julie's comments, which I think are greatly appreciated and very positive, does anyone have any questions on the accounts? I can't see any questions, so that enables us to adopt the accounts. And just before we move on to the election of board members, I did want to just take a few minutes and recognise that there are a number of board members on the call who are retiring from the board this year. And all of them have been great servants to this board and made a significant contribution. So Julia Fitzpatrick, who was with us for 7 years and who chaired our Audit Performance and Risk Committee, is sadly stepping down. And Julia's contribution over many years has been huge and made such a difference to us. So we're going to miss Julie. We also have Cathy Wiley, who started on this board a few months, I think, before I joined the board, and was actually one of the reasons why I joined the board. And Cathy has served on many of our committees and has also been a source of real wisdom and advice to the board. And we're really going to miss. We're really going to miss that gentle approach, Cathy, and that great wisdom that you bring. Certainly, I've benefited from that a number of times. So thank you, Cathy, and just to note that we're going to miss you. Joe Roger is also stepping down, and Joe chaired our people committee, and Joe chaired that committee so strongly and with such a deft touch that it really enabled our senior team and me as the chair of the board to really understand some of the people issues where I'm not, certainly I'm personally not an expert, but we really did rely on Joe so heavily for that. And thank you, Joe, for that contribution. It's made a huge difference, and to the contribution made to the board also. And then we have Lise Reid, who's stepping down, and Lise was my vice chair, and also a really good, strong source of just that challenge at the right time and asking those really targeted questions that made us all stop and think. And Lise, we're also going to miss you from the board, and thank you for the contribution you've made in supporting us over a number of years. So those members are standing down, but we also have some new members who are joining us, and I think our next agenda item is to welcome those members to the board and approve them for joining our board. So I'm going to hand over to Wendy.
So we've got 4 new members who've already been co-opted to the board, but we're looking for full election to the board today. And those 4 are Kathleen McAdams, who's on the call, Krista Ricci, who's here too, Donald is there at the top of my screen, and Bryony Willett. So we had our recruitment exercise earlier in the year, and these 4 members wanted to join us, and we wanted to have them on our board. So we're looking for, we can do them en masse for the 4 of them. We're looking for a proposer and a seconder.
So can we have one of you to propose that recommendation that those 4 individuals join our board?
Very happy to do that, Gary. Happy to propose the motion.
And then we need someone to second that, and we've got Joe.
Yeah.
So thank you, and welcome to the board, Kathleen, Donald, Krista, Bryony.
And so that's great. We've got the 4 new board members, and Fraser, who's not with us today, couldn't make it today. He's an existing board member, but his 3-year term has come to an end. So we're looking for him to be re-elected again. I need a proposer and a seconder for that.
Well, can I propose that?
Yes, you can. Yep. So Gary's proposed. I need a seconder. Margaret. Brilliant.
Thank you. And that then takes us on to the next item in the agenda, which is the Chief Exec's report. So it's over to Angela.
Thank you, Chair. And quite a few of the comments that I'm going to touch on today are similar to ones you've made, Gary, but maybe just from a slightly different angle. But I think they're equally as important to mention. So this is our first full year without COVID dominating the agenda. And oh boy, how quickly you forget just how much every meeting almost was about COVID. And it's so nice to get to the stage of, really focusing on the future. But of course, COVID has not gone away. And I'm sure all of you know someone at the moment who might have had it recently. And we are not being complacent at all around our winter planning, because no doubt it will come back and bite us a bit over the winter months. So we still have to pay it the due attention and respect that it deserves. And I think the other key reflection on the last year is that we as a housing sector, a social housing sector, have been fairly well insulated against the economic chaos at times in the country. And we're really grateful, I think, a lot of us, that we work in a sector that hasn't been devastated by some of the challenges, particularly high inflation rates, for example. But we did not escape by any means. And as Donna mentioned, and Gary, you've mentioned, the cost of our fuel contracts that we negotiated for this year were eye-wateringly high. And that was in part because the contracts we had in place previously were fantastically good deals. So that was a real shock to the system, I have to say, and did mean that we had to pass on a lot of those costs to our tenants. But we did, a fair bit of work to support them. And the other really odd thing that happened last year was, for the first time in my 30-odd years career in social housing, was government rent controls. And even now, when I look back at it and think about that and the scariness of it, of not being able to determine your pricing and your income and really have a secure future laid out, was quite a moment in time for us in the sector. And while we're now without rent controls, that threat has now materialised in our risk register and will be there for some time, because there is, I think, still a significant risk that further interventions might come our way in the future. So it was a really interesting and challenging year in some respects, but we certainly have come through it well. That year was also the first full year of our new corporate strategy, and we took a whole year to write that strategy. So it feels older than it actually is because we're so familiar with it now. But we did deliver a number of major projects. But one of the ones that I think was key and wasn't planned for was the cost of living increases. And we very quickly managed to access a huge amount of funding, as well as put money in the pot ourselves to help mitigate those most in need in our tenant base. And as Donna mentioned, that was £131,000, which was significant. And we're carrying on in that vein. And what it really did remind us is it's so important, given the income profile of our tenants, that we really invest in our welfare rights and debt advice service. And just this year alone, we've also been successful in getting some funding to deliver a fuel support service to tenants in partnership with a number of RSLs. So the importance of that focus, Gary, and it echoes a lot of what you said about absolutely being customer focused, that we continue to do that. So some of the big successes we've had in that year gone by, we cannot forget about all the work our IT team have done to get cyber essentials, because we were probably exposed to a fair bit of risk in the last couple of years. And to have that closed down and stay on top of it, because that's almost the biggest challenge, is staying on top of those cyber risks. So that's been a huge piece of work, and we're grateful for all the effort of the team to not only put that in place, but everyone in the organisation now that responsibility to keep it going. We also had an approach that we tried out last year to get our tenants involved in helping define our contracts for reactive repairs and open space maintenance. And our tenants actually really valued that opportunity to help get the scope of those contracts right, so that it was truly meeting their needs. And that was a really great experience, and something that we're now going to build on across the organisation going forward. The other big success we had is that we put resources into having a new head of service and sustainability, and created a new sustainability net zero plan, which was huge. And it just really confirmed to us that if we don't invest in these areas of the business, then you won't make a huge amount of progress. And we really have made some progress. But what it did tell us is data is king in this world, isn't it? And we don't actually have that strong a data set as we should have at this point in time in terms of our carbon footprint. So we're really focusing on getting those fundamentals in place, so that we can get on that journey to meeting those challenging targets that have been set for the sector. And the other one that Gary touched on is we embarked on a massive project that became almost like a second job for us, which was the pay review project, because it was so multidimensional. We actually had our last project team meeting just a week ago, and in terms of formal meetings, we had 34 meetings of that group, and we had as many meetings of all the little subgroups that were going on to work through that project. And we've had a successful outcome, but it just, I think, highlighted to us the time and effort that goes into making that type of seismographic change to work. And we've learned a lot about the organisation and about our culture and about how we want to be as an employer going forward. So it was absolutely worthwhile, but was a real test of our resilience along the way. Donna mentioned our new homes as well as Gary and Drimmen, and I think the one thing we have to remind ourselves is that development was Hanover's first development in Scotland as a standalone Scottish organisation. And so we knocked them down and rebuilt this amazing development, and we decided to use that passive house standard, energy efficient standard. And having just spent some more time with the tenants on that development, we have got a challenge on our hands if we are going to continue to use that standard, particularly use heat pumps as the heating system in homes for older people, because it's really challenged our own understanding of how they work well, but it's been a real journey for those tenants. So we have learned a lot about it, and we are keen to, make sure we get it right for those tenants, but get it right before we do any more to that standard. So it's been a really interesting year. Of course, we're halfway through this year, and it's quite often hard to remember what you did in the year before, isn't it? But what does stick in my mind is some of the challenges that we had. And we had a major challenge halfway through the year when we realised our customer safety compliance management and data management was nowhere near where it should have been at that stage. And we launched a major project to fix it, which we did in record time, and even recently got some plaudits from the regulator for the approach we took. So that was a challenging time. We also had a really challenging time last year around our IT infrastructure stability. And now that it's fixed, we've forgotten about it. But actually, it was the bane of everyone's life, that whole getting chucked out of the system time and time again because our infrastructure was old and creaking. So we've managed to address that. We've not fully done that, but we've got to the stage where at least, because what was happening was at least once a day I'd say to someone, how are you getting on? And they would roll their eyes and say, I've just been chucked out of the system. So that is a huge achievement in itself. The other one, of course, that comes on the back of that, and Gary mentioned it as well, is we've now got a digital plan. So not only are we focusing on fixing the infrastructure piece and challenge that we had, we've actually got a real clear ambition of where we want to be in terms of that digital journey. And that's the exciting part, isn't it, about where we go next and how we continue to improve our services and access to them for our tenants, but also make the working environment for our employees the best it can be. So what I learned from that year is that there is not a challenge that we as an organisation cannot deal with. And the team that we have across the whole organisation, time and time again, rise to that challenge and make me feel proud and privileged to work in this organisation with such great people. And our tenants are absolutely telling us loud and clear they want to continue to be involved in helping us, shape that journey as we go forward. So we are pushing at an open door, and we are really looking forward to doing much more of that in this year and the years coming. So it's halfway through the year, just a couple of reflections. We've just had board approved 2 new key strategies, which is fantastic, and we're now down in the depths of planning what they look like in terms of work streams, and that's really quite exciting. As Gary mentioned, we are absolutely delighted that Marissa Ferguson, who's with us today on the call, is our new Director of Asset Management, and can I say she has hit the ground running and has brought an absolutely welcome level of enthusiasm, experience and skills to us already, and we're already reaping those benefits. And to get to the point where we're putting in a new pay framework from the end of this month that actually makes us a much, I think, more progressive employer, will really help us retain our great people, but also attract new people going forward. And that's a hugely significant achievement for the business. And to have the calibre of board members and new board members, to me, just is fantastic, because, I have a lot of interaction with other organisations in the business, and A lot of organisations struggle to attract and have really strong board members, and we have an outstanding board. And we would not have got to where we are today without the support and guidance and wisdom that the board provide us to take us through to this stage. So we're eternally grateful for that, past and present. So that's all I wanted to say, and I'm going to hand back to you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if the new board members are not able now to rescind their desire to join the board after that little chat about some of the risks and challenges that we face. But I think we're also in a good place. I think Angela's message is the right one, isn't it? With lots of risks, but it's not an organisation that's not up to that challenge. So thank you, Angela. So that takes us to agenda item 8, which is the appointment of external auditors. And the proposal today, you've already heard from Anderson Brown, and the proposal today is that we continue to appoint AAB as the external auditors. And I'm looking for a proposer and a seconder for that proposal. So could we have someone raise their hand as a proposer, please? Any one of you? Okay.
Happy to propose that.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Alan, thank you. And then we have a seconder.
Brian.
Oh,
Brian's
no,
got-
just wait,
Brian's-
Rob.
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 Thank you, Rob.
So, Julie, just that confirms that you continue as our external auditor. So, thank you for all your efforts and auditing the accounts. Rob, you've got your hand up. Do you have a question at that
He
point?
was just.
He was.
Seconding the vote. Thank you, Rob.
So that takes us to agenda item 9, which is any other competent business. And it's just to thank everyone really for attending today. I've already thanked AAB as our external auditors. Obviously, it takes a little bit of time that we, as a board, we meet each other a bit often, but it's to thank everyone for, it is hard being on the board. We're all got other commitments. We've got other things in our life, but I think as a board, it's been clear all year that we do try and make the effort to make the board really effective, and you know the contribution from all of us as members is really noted and particularly helps me in the chair to really navigate those difficult waters that the organisation faces. So thank you to everyone on the board. And I think a final thing is just to thank our senior leadership team and the employees of Hanover. Nothing happens without them. They are the enthusiasm. Sometimes I think if you ever go out to one of the developments and meet the Hanover team, it's inspiring, and it really does make you understand what it really means to be a Hanover tenant and to be receiving that Hanover care, and how valuable our tenants regard often these our staff members who often are their friends. And it's just to recognise that day in, day out hard work from our team, and it's greatly appreciated. So thank you for that. And I think that ends this part of the agenda for the AGM.
Yeah, that's the conclusion of our AGM. Thank you all for coming today. And board members, you're more than welcome to stay on the call, and we can conclude the business of the board. So wonderful to see you all.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.